You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur. Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and those who I feel are the next generation icons of the weddings and event industry, all to provide you with education and inspiration. Well, a few weeks I mentioned that I was going to New York with my wife to meet my daughter's boyfriend's parents who had flown in from England, and then I was going to go hang with my brother at the beach. And just as we were arriving in New York City, my wife started to feel some symptoms, and the next morning we woke up and yes, she tested positive for COVID. So we went back home, and then we're pretty sure that I got it. My tests were negative, but I had classic symptoms. So what can I say? I guess I'm now a member of the COVID club. Anyway, if you missed last week's episode, it was a new conversation with Julie Novak, CEO of Party Slate. She always has tons of great tips, advice, and reflection about the current state of the wedding and event industry. So if you missed it, be sure to listen to that interview with Julie. Today's guest is Stephanie Cole, the founder and principal planner of Cole Drake Events, a luxury destination Napa and Sonoma wedding planning company located in the heart of the Napa wine country. They've been featured in Martha Stewart, Harper's, and the New York Times. Today, we talk about Stephanie's early influences, how she transitioned from having a business partner to running her business on her own, what her process is with clients, challenges she's faced, a great story about a favorite wedding, her pricing philosophy, and more. Enjoy this conversation with Stephanie Cole. Hey, Stephanie, I want to first thank Julie Novak, CEO of Party Slate, for referring me to you.
I adore Julie. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's great. Actually, I just interviewed her yesterday. So both your interviews will happen within a few weeks of each other. And it's always good to talk to her too. So she highly recommended you. And I had heard of you anyway. And so I'm just so glad to get in touch. So in your website, you referred to your mother as an industry icon. And I wonder, what did or does she do?
Yeah, great question. So my mom was the president of the California Downtown Association for many, many years, and has worked with downtowns throughout California. Currently, she's working with Sacramento. She's worked with Davis. She's worked with Napa. She's worked with Fairfield, Chula Vista, kind of all over the state. But she's been in this business for as long as I can remember. I think I was free labor for her for a very long time. And I, have every intention of doing that to my own children, getting free labor when they become of age.
Yeah. I wonder how you think this affected you growing up, that she was in the business like that and that you did work for her.
I was always a really hard worker. I think I definitely got that instilled by my mother to me. Since the age of 4, I was going to become a veterinarian and went to college to become a vet. And had the most, how do I want to say this? Just the most boring and flaccid professor in zoology. And he completely turned me off from it. And meanwhile, I had this great psych teacher that I had the pleasure of being taught by, and started going into a psych major. With creative therapy as being my undergrad.
Well, we could use that with clients, can't we?
I use that. I turned it into a minor. I use that minor quite a bit.
Right.
But it's been a great experience. With shifting, I always think that everything happens for a reason. I ended up shifting to become a teacher, which again, all these things that have led up to where I am now, I definitely draw on every aspect in my own career, whether it's teaching. I always joke that I get out the red pen on timelines, and the psych definitely helps, especially as we were going through COVID. Yeah, and right. We had a couple fires out here in wine country. And there were definitely a lot of tears, both from ourselves as vendors and as clients as well. But, all of the schooling has got me where I'm at now. I'm incredibly thankful that I was fortunate enough to have college, and I even went into master's as well.
Well, and I know that through your career trajectory, you worked in the events department of a winery, then you worked with a boutique catering company, and then you were with Auberge, am I saying that right? Resorts, right?
Auberge du Soleil, yes.
What did you do for them?
So with Auberge du Soleil, it's a flagship Auberge Resorts property. It was built in 1981 up on the hill in Rutherford. It has a total of 50 rooms, luxury resort. And I was their wedding manager there. And gosh, I can't remember what my actual title was, but something along those lines. And did weddings there. So they are still doing weddings. They are going to shift a little bit next year, but still have the best view in the valley from what I say.
So how long ago was it that you started your company?
Started the company in 2013 is when we started Cold Drake Events. I was at Auberge in 2008 and started weddings in my career in 2006. So been in it just a few years.
Well, but here's the thing I'd really like to know, Stephanie. It is a big shift to be in what was probably, like a salary situation for all those years, working for really a corporate environment and then breaking out on your own. What was that process like for you?
It was scary. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it at all. It was definitely scary. We had an industry friend of ours that basically said, if you jump, there's plenty of people that will put wind beneath your wings.
I like that. Yep.
It really was the case. We had such an incredible amount of vendors that knew me, that knew the company, knew the people that were creating this, and they were so excited and really helped us, launch the company with no debt. I mean, we sailed the first year, which we consider ourselves very, very lucky.
Yeah, and you're saying so you did have a business partner from the start?
I did. So Sarah Drake and I started the company. We launched on May 17th, 2013. I have recently taken over the company as a single owner. Sarah has, with COVID, as many of our vendors and people, she took those 2 years and kind of reflected on her life and wanted to spend more time with her family. And I completely understand, it's a hard business we're all in, right? We give up weekends. We give up games of our children or recitals, because we have to work. And, she, with those 2 years of reflection, so to speak, she just, she decided that she wanted to spend time with them. So she has just a handful more weddings with us this year. She was kind enough to continue with her commitments. And so I think her last wedding is in December. And then I believe she's trying to become, she had started prior to COVID with getting her pilot's license. And, we never have enough time to get all those hours. So I think she's going to be picking that up and trying to, besides doing pilot license, try to get a Monday through Friday job where it's not so, too much time and not enough time with their families.
Right. Well, but this is a big shift for you, obviously. I mean, how are you feeling about this? Or do you feel now, after, 9 years, you feel more solid with everything? I mean, it's a big change.
It's a big change. We still have a great relationship there. I've still called her and just, started the conversation with, I know you're not the owner anymore, but I need someone to kind of talk this out with, right? That was the great thing about having that business partner is, like, you may have some crazy idea or need another head to kind of think about strategies or ways to go about it. And I still call her and ask her her opinions on things. So it's been a shift, and I'm definitely gaining a lot more confidence with what I think is usually the right answer. At least that it is for me. I am having a hard time stop saying we and just saying
right.
It's kind of ingrained.
It's interesting because I kind of have the opposite situation. I mentioned to you before we started recording that I had been running my own music company, Kushner Entertainment, for decades. And then 3 years ago, I was 4 years ago, I was just starting to feel burnt. And it just, some of the responsibilities I had, I just didn't want to do anymore. And, long story short, it took a year of meeting almost weekly with this potential business partner who I ended up partnering with on my company. And for me, making that switch from doing it alone first for years and then having a partner has been a real relief. I mean, I get his infrastructure of his existing company because he's also in the event entertainment business. But in terms of what you just said now, where you'll still call her to talk through things, that I really resonated when you said that, because that's one of the biggest things that I get out of this with my business partner is that I have someone that I could really talk to about this.
Exactly. I mean, spouses or significant others, mine is not in this pool of weddings and events, so he can only provide, an ear. But it's good. I referred to her for many years as my work wife, and she did as to me as well. And again, I feel very blessed that she still. We still are able to chat, and she still is like, here's what I would do, or I think that's a good thought. And, it's really nice to still kind of have that.
So let's dig into how you do your business. And I want to start with really the creative side. So Stephanie, are there some aspects of your like a personal signature that you can identify in words for what your style is overall?
Oh, good question. I think for me, I'm very detail oriented. I am the one that always has the crazy couple, no, I shouldn't say couple, 10, 15, 20 page timelines that has everything in there. I want to make sure that no one's bugging any clients with asinine questions on day of, and everything can be sourced within the timeline. My staff is very well versed with what's in the timeline. So that's one big component, is just really honing in on the details, right? And having a good foundation, a good plan. Obviously, the ability to think on your feet, because as we all know, there's always things that go wrong at an event, and it's the way you handle them, right? Is keeping calm and cool. I always get a lot of advice from people, and one bit of advice that was given to me by my stepfather was, don't get angry; it doesn't achieve anything, which is really true, right? You just get heated, and your judgment and it starts to be clouded. So, we do have a good ability. All of my assistants on site are able to think on their feet, and then we're also able to think of okay, here's said problem. Let's think of 2-3 scenarios that we can, either do on our own, and what the outcomes of that is. It's always planning, 3, 4, 5, 10 steps ahead of the what ifs. So I'd say that's one of our biggest things too, of, there's always going to be something that happens, and never to let the client know what has happened.
It's interesting. I've talked about this a fair amount on the show, where my own experience, I used to wear it on my sleeve, and not only would I feel more anxious because of that, but my team would feel it. And I started to realize, my God, if they can feel it, does the planner, does the client know, and I had to really work. This is when I used to perform with my top band. And, I had to really work hard on staying calm, and even the way I walked, just look calm, and on my face, don't make it so obvious.
Yeah.
And it took me years.
It's like that meme or the gif of the little dog that's got fire around him, and he's drinking a cup of coffee saying it's fine.
Right. Exactly.
Where it could just be all just going to hell, but you're keeping calm and cool.
I want to make sure that you're aware of 2 other shows that are on the Wedding Biz Network. First, The Business of Being Creative, hosted by founder and president of The Business of Being Creative, Sean Lowe. Sean's consulting firm is focused on providing practical advice to those in the business of being creative. Tune in every Tuesday to hear a new episode chock full of topics and advice for creative businesses. Also, check out the 2 seasons of Stop and Smell the Roses, hosted by the one and only lifestyle and event design expert, Preston Bailey. Preston speaks with such an honest voice. I know you're going to thoroughly enjoy hearing him on this unique platform. You can find both shows at theweddingbiznetwork.com or on your cell phone's podcast app for both The Business of Being Creative and Stop and Smell the Roses. In terms of your process with clients, what is that like? Like, if you could kind of take me through a typical situation of how come up with your design concepts, your ideas, from meeting with clients initially. How do you go about doing that?
So from inception, we had this novel concept years ago of instead of offering packages per se, because a lot of planners do, here's our full service package, here's our partial, here's our day of. We don't do day of, we don't do partial. And we really like the full service, like that package word is really, we're trying to get rid of that vernacular. We, none of our clients are exactly the same, right? It makes our job fun. I'm not having to do the same thing like a step and repeat every dang wedding. So we start with our clients before they go to contract is really figuring out what they want. And, there are definitely a list of offerings that I need to have that in order for myself and for the event to be successful. There are things that are kind of, non-negotiables. Like, I need to do your timeline. I need to do your schematic. I will do design, but if your florist wants to do design, great. If we can work hand in hand, you want to bring in a designer, great. I'm fully comfortable doing it as well. But we go through everything, figure out what they want. Do they want, additional help on auxiliary days, i.e. rehearsal dinners, welcome dinners, day after brunches, those kind of things, maybe wine tastings, because we have a lot of wineries in my area.
Right.
So we go through that as a whole. And then so this kind of makes us a little different too, prior to contracting, we do a budget with our potential clients. I feel very strongly about that because even if it takes me an hour and a half, 2 hours of time with them, I've already qualified them with like, here's where we think our budget is. Like, let's say we're at 200, 300 grand for, 90, 100 people, what have you. But then really going through that initial consultation with drawing a budget up from them because they don't know what they have never done this before. Maybe they've done it once or twice before, but this is something we see every day in our area and other areas because we do destinations. So we kind of know what our market is, right? So we'll go through, we'll have conversations about design, like what are some things that you like? How, where do you shop for home decor? Where do you shop for clothes? Like, and I had one client tell me, she's like, well, if you ask me about my clothes, I wear all black every day, but for my wedding, I'm a secret cupcake. And I was like, secret cupcake? She's like, yeah, I want everything pink and glittery. And I was like, okay, well,
yeah,
that helps me out. So we really go through that. We talk about, floral design, what you're thinking for ceremony, transportation, every little bit. And we build a budget. And obviously we know things can change. Like obviously brides and grooms' visions evolve as the time goes, which is totally understandable. But we also want them to have a realistic and ideal budget to go into this thing, because the last thing that we want is at the end of the day, they, have thanked everyone, they've kissed all of their family goodbye, and then they get back on the plane to go back home, and they're like, "Oh crap, we just spent we're now." I don't know, 100 grand more, like in the hole or over than what we actually wanted to spend. So we're super, super realistic. And, as the visions evolve, we're constantly checking in with them, I always say we're the angel and the devil when it comes to design, because here, I'm presenting you with different options, and there's, the high, the mid, and the low price points. And of course, like for design, I want the high price point, but I also know, when we do talk about budget, okay, 200 grand is your budget where you want to be at. Where can we really stretch it? Like, do you have reserves? Do you have another 50 that if you fall in love with those velvet napkins because they feel like soft kittens, then we need to have a little bit of room to grow? Or you've changed into...
Yeah, it's such an interesting question, Stephanie. I don't know that I've heard anyone say that, is to say, yeah, if, what is the extra cushion as opposed to, hitting that point and then maybe having a difficult conversation. It's like you've already done it.
I always want to know where's our target and then where can we grow to and they're just the reserves. Like you fall in love with something, you want, you love Lily of the Valley, which is a super expensive floral, as anyone knows. And well, now we need to go really high on our bouquet. Like we weren't originally talking about that, but we have the reserves for it. So we shoot for a target and then we've got backup.
What is the hardest part of this job for you? What do you still kind of struggle with?
Right when you said that, my initial reaction was saying goodbye to some of my clients.
Oh, wow.
That's probably one of my hardest things is there's always the clients that you can't wait to say goodbye. And then more often than not, they're the clients that you develop a relationship with them over the course of a year, 18 months. Heck, I've even done 6 months and we've done a 3-week wedding too. But you're on the phone with them every day, right? Twice a day. You're exactly what their dog's name is, everything, who their favorite aunt is. And you become part therapist, right? There goes the minor that I got.
There's that.
Part therapist, part sister, part mom, part best friend, part teacher. There's all these categories, all these hats that you wear. And when you're accustomed to it almost becomes like a best friend, right? That you're so accustomed to speaking with them. And then after the event, I definitely keep in touch with many of my clients. Thank goodness for social as well, because I get to see their families and such. And when they come into town, we always go out for a glass of wine. But it's that's probably the hardest part is those clients that you form these relationships with that, there's no real reason to call them every day anymore.
Well, right. And you touched on it earlier. I mean, in terms of doing therapy with them, but it's the emotional element of it, the emotional component of it. You are such a big part of what is one of the most emotional milestones of their lives, so
100%.
Yeah. So I can see why it would be difficult to, leave at the end.
As far as the job's concerned, letting go of being perfect. That's probably my other hardest thing.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that's a tough one. You mentioned earlier how all these events, I'm certain every event has some kind of a problem, some kind of a challenge, and how you already, approach it with, to try to approach it with a calm demeanor. What is an example of a story of a really big challenge that you had to face and how you overcame it?
Oh.
Or there are too many to think of?
There's always something. One that happened years ago was we had a wedding that was scheduled for a Saturday in October. And 2 days prior was at the family home. The home was going under construction. It was just finishing. We were just scraping by the skin of our teeth. And thankfully, this bride did not listen to us about bringing all of her stuff up, like her dress and all of that, but to her dad's house. But there was an electrical fire from the construction company, and the house caught on fire on Thursday evening for the Saturday wedding.
Oh my God.
Thankfully, they've rebuilt, but thankfully, our community, and Napa Valley is known worldwide, obviously, is Napa and Sonoma. But out here, it's a very small knit community. And the community found out about the fire, and we were able to move it on Friday morning to a winery. And the winery, you're talking middle of harvest, right? So you've got barrels, you're full production. You've got these staff members working 16, 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. I shouldn't say that because, they would never work more than 12 hours.
Right.
But, they moved barrels they literally moved barrels for these people, and we got them in, and, it was hectic. It was stressful. But as far as the client knew that obviously her dad's house burnt down, but you look at the photos, we actually have it on our website, and it was incredible to just how people were donating wine because all of the wine and liquor were in the house. People really came together, and it was again that little dog drinking a cup of coffee. It's fine,
Right.
So it was a whole new wedding. Less than it was 36 hours.
Incredible! Oh my God, I can't imagine.
I still run into the bride because she's a local, and she always refers to it as the boyfriend she never had, that wedding.
Oh my God. What about the flip side? In terms of well, or not exactly, but what is a favorite wedding? Like if you could describe the design elements and that you really enjoyed doing.
I just had one last month, and it was at a place called Filoli, which is down in the South Bay, in a little town called Woodside. And this couple, first and foremost, this is one of the ones that like hurts to get rid of because they were so amazing, just the kindest, nicest, funniest people. They were such a joy to work with. We did 3 days of events, and we created this beautiful structure at Filoli. Had an incredible team of vendors. The florist, Flowers by Edgar, he knocked it out of the park. The rental team, A Fine Linen Creation, they I don't know how they set this entire structure. It was a truss structure covered in wood, and then we covered vines all over it. And we came in on Friday, and it was down by Sunday morning, and it just incredible event. It's now out trying to get published. So I wish I would have it on my website, but it was a great, a lot of times I say that for a planner, we're like a really highly trained conductor. Like let's think the San Francisco Symphony.
I like that.
And
yep.
We've got, a brass section, a percussion section, wind section, and they were all just in such great harmony together. And it came off really, really well. And, came off of 3 days with, maybe 3 hours of sleep between the 3 days. And just was like so pumped, that feeling where you're like, we really kicked ass here. Like, and you felt it, and the clients were so happy, and everything looked so gorgeous. And it went flawlessly, like really did.
Yeah, that's a great feeling when you have an event like that. I also wonder about your philosophy around pricing. Like if you're comfortable talking about that, and I don't mean numbers, but I mean whether you charge a flat fee or you charge a percentage or a combination. How do you deal with that?
Oh, we are a combo kind of person. So we definitely do have a minimum to go into it, but that's another reason why we do the budget beforehand is we talk to them, and say, okay, this is what we're looking at. We know where our site is at that point. So we do site selection as well. So say if someone comes in and is like, hey, I just know I want to get married out there, or I want to get married in Central Valley or down near San Diego. So we can do site selection. And then once we've solidified that site, then we start talking about budgeting for that site in particular and getting into where we are in that. As I'm sure you're well aware of, a resort is a much easier beast, if you will, than that of a vineyard with dirt, right? A little bit easier. So we talk about that. Our percentages range depending upon if you're at a resort versus private property. And we look at the scope of it as a whole, and we have the budget already done. And then from that, we can express our fee as a flat fee. So we go in locked in. We do have a clause in our contract that if your scope of project changes significantly, and there's a percentage in there, that we come back to you and say, hey, you know what? We were talking about just, let's say Jordan Kahn Orchestra. Like that's who we were bringing in. That's what we talked about for band. But now you're talking about bringing in Harry Styles, and that is a different kind of beast. And so we go back to him and say, well, now we got to do this, this, and this. So we need to come back with an addendum to our contract to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's interesting. And I also wonder before we go, the market, the market is just so saturated these days, and it's been like that for a while. How do you view, how do you differentiate yourself? Do you have any specific marketing strategy, or is it just been word of mouth? I just wonder how you look at that.
Great question. So, nod to Julie. We do advertise with Party Slate.
Right.
They've done wonders for us as well. But our real bread and butter is referrals. Referrals from past clients, referrals from sites. We definitely get a lot out here, and we've gotten referrals that have taken us outside the area. We've got one in a couple months in Arizona. We have one next year in France. but they all started from referrals of friends and such. So it's, we do some advertising. Really, I like Party Slate's forum and how they have it all set up, because I think it's also, it's a good way to get to people as far as all those visuals that are concerned. And Instagram is also another great way of how we market.
Yeah. Instagram, it's interesting. Oh my God, social media for me, it's just not my favorite thing to do. But when I get advice from people, it does seem like now Instagram is the main one. At least that's my impression of it for us in the wedding industry.
100%. And it's going into that Reels kind of TikTok kind of feel. I recently just got into TikTok, and I can go down a rabbit hole and lose an hour of my life at 11 o'clock at night. But I've
Right.
learned some really great home hacks that I never knew before. But it's, it's definitely where it's going, it was kind of crazy to me. Like Instagram was always, very photo oriented, and you have these images, and whether you post one photo or you post 10 that people have to swipe right through. And now I really am seeing the shift into Reels, which is kind of like it's TikTok. It's just Instagram's version of it. And it's really going, I feel it's really going that way as we continue on.
Yeah. I agree. I've been hearing that a lot. I think we just have to accept that this is what it is, and more than accept it, but embrace it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And may as well enjoy it.
100%. I do enjoy it. It's just my sleep doesn't enjoy it so much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I find myself, my God, I wake up in the middle of the night, I start looking at Instagram. I can't stop. It's crazy. I do that. But Stephanie, this has been great. I love getting such a wonderful snapshot of your business, and I really respect what you're doing. And I know that you've got a stellar reputation. So I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Thank you for having me, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Stephanie Cole. You can check out her website, which is coledrake.com. On social media, on both Facebook and Instagram, it is Cole Drake Events. You can get all of this in the show notes with event pics that Stephanie provided in your cell phone's podcast app or at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And I would really appreciate if you could spread the word, let people know about the show, also about the interview. That would mean a lot to me. And next week's guest is going to be a revisit of my original interview of Rishi Patel, a fantastic conversation. And finally, if you could subscribe to the Wedding Biz podcast, that way you'll always know when a new episode drops, and we'll catch you next week.